Good afternoon, viewers. So today we're talking everything buying cars in Mauritius. Fun, can be stressful, can be fun, but mostly stressful. So there's quite a process to doing it. So we're going to chat with Jules. Jules is going to tell us our options. So we've got 4 options when it comes to buying vehicles.
Yeah, so you can come in, walk into any of the car dealerships and buy something brand new. That would be the most straightforward option, but perhaps, that's not something that you want to do. The second option is to have a look at second-hand car dealerships or to purchase something from an individual buyer, which may require some more administration on your part.
A lot more administration.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about what that process is in a moment. The third option is to actually buy a imported second-hand car. So one of the things that Mauritius does is it imports second-hand cars. Well, a dealership would do that, and there are dealerships that specialize in that.
Yeah.
They'll import a second-hand car, they'll make sure everything's okay with it. They'll often give you maybe an 18-month to 2-year warranty on that vehicle. And if you want to know if a car is imported and not being purchased in Mauritius originally, you'll see on their number plate, it'll always have a Z in the number plate. So you know then that it's an imported second-hand vehicle.
So we purchased several of these vehicles. So what happens is they buy these vehicles from Singapore and Malaysia. So what happens in Singapore, Malaysia and Japan is that the older the cars get, the higher they get taxed. So we've bought things like Honda Jazzes with like 14,000 kilometers on. The car's 4 years old. It's only done 14,000 Ks. And it comes in at being about 50% or about 40% cheaper than a brand new vehicle from the Honda dealership. Yeah. These vehicles are bulletproof. They come in, they're all grade 4 and grade 5 cars, which are excellent. Like I said, the dealer gives you a warranty on it. It's a real plug and play. They come, they bring them here, they give them a service, they give them a wash, and they sell them, and we've had great experiences with those vehicles, and they've lasted us for several years. We've actually passed one of the cars down to one of our salespeople, and from our salespeople down to a technician, and some of those cars have run for 10, 15 years in our business. So we are very reliable.
Yeah, it's a great option, and that's why you'll also notice there'll be cars with different names, like a Honda Fit, for example.
It would be a Honda Jazz.
Is a Honda Jazz. If it's bought in Mauritius, it's a Honda Jazz. If it's an originated from Mauritius, if it's imported, it's a Fit. Yeah. There's the Nissan March and the Nissan Micra, for example. So those are just some things to be aware of, but it is a great option if you're looking for something with low mileage, a bit of a warranty, and obviously comes at a cheaper price. And then the fourth option really is if you wanted to import your own car.
Sure.
We don't recommend that.
Yeah, so it's one of, in our consultancy business for people that are immigrating to Mauritius, one of the biggest questions I get is, can I bring my lovely old Land Rover that I've had for 20 years and it's like my pride and joy? And the answer is no. Guys, why? I'll give you an example. If something is worth $1 million, you're going to pay 100% duty, so now you're going to pay the duty on 2 million, plus you're going to pay the duty on the shipping cost, and you're going to pay VAT. So a car that was worth $1 million is now, you're going to pay for a car that's worth 2.5 million. So it's not even an option unless you really have money to blow. I would not say to import a car. I've imported a car, but it's a vintage car. There are no duties if you want to bring a vintage car in. It's got to be 40 years old. It's got to be right-hand drive, and it's got to be in running condition. You can bring in vintage cars, but when it comes to your day-to-day runaround, if you're sitting in the UK or you're in Canada or in South Africa and you want to import your daily runaround, it's definitely a no-no. You're going to lose. You can buy 2.5 cars for the same price here in Mauritius.
Right. Yeah. So those are the options that you have. One of the questions that we get is leasing. So you are able to lease a vehicle and go through the process with the banks. At the moment, interest rates are quite high. You're looking at least a 10% interest rate on a car lease. You'll need to place down at least a 30% deposit.
That's for expats. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the deposit that's required. You can lease the vehicle for, I think, up to 7 years is the maximum period. The documentation that's required if you decide to go this route would be you would need to go to the bank. You would ask for your passport or ID, proof of address in Mauritius, your birth certificate, your marriage certificate if you are married, your pay slips or proof of income over the last 3 months, and bank statements for the last 3 months. So those are the documents. The process can take a little bit of time, but it's pretty straightforward.
The interest rate's about 10%. So that's quite high.
Yeah. However, there is an option on green leases if you're looking to buy an electric vehicle or a hybrid electric, and so there are some incentive schemes there, and you could look at maybe 5.5% to 6.25% of some of the advertised interest rates on a green lease.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, now the process. The process is quite a process, and it's like a 3-stage process. So if you're doing it on your own, it's going to the NTA, then going to the deeds office, getting the registered deed done, and then going back to the NTA. So there's back and forward process, but I'll let Julia talk you through it.
Yeah, it's going to take you at least a full day.
Or two.
Or two.
Depending on the queues.
And depending on whether you've got all your documents. But there are people who will do this process for you for a fee of maybe 2,000, 2,500 rupees, which we would say is worth it if you're not wanting
the pain goes away.
to do the process, because obviously they're grouping a whole lot of things together and they're going and doing it on behalf of a few people. So the first thing that you'd have to do, and of course the dealership would do most of this as well if you were buying the car from the dealer. So
a new car you wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, you wouldn't. They would handle that process for you, and you would be able to arrive and get your keys and drive off once you've got your insurance and signed all the details.
As well as a second-hand car dealer, but this is if you're purchasing a vehicle from an individual. So we did that when we arrived here. Yeah. We bought a little Nissan Micra from another South African family. They were leaving and we were arriving. It was our first little run-around car, and we had to do all the documents, so we learned the process the hard way.
Yeah, and sometimes it's nice to know what the process is. And do it yourself, but if that's not for you, then there are options. But really, you'll have to sign your deed of sale, and then the first thing that has to happen is that the seller needs to give you the certificate de gage, which is basically a certificate saying that there is no debt attached to the vehicle. Once you have that, you have to take the original sales deed as well as a copy of the sales deed. You'll have to you pay a registration fee of 400 rupees. You go into the register's office.
The deeds office, so they register it in your name. Yeah, they transfer the registration out of the current owner to yours, and they put a little stamp on the top.
Yeah.
The document.
So you'll have to take what they call the horsepower or the registration certificate, and you will be transferring the vehicle into your name. So your ID, the horsepower, a copy of the deed of sale as well as the original, and 400 rupees cash. Once that process is done, you go to the National Transport Authority, and at that point you'll need to have the insurance for the vehicle. So
12 months insurance.
Yeah, 12 months insurance, because your insurance needs to cover the same period of time as the license registration fee.
And guys, it can't be out. So if you're going on the Friday and it's the 31st, the insurance has got to run, the cover letter's got to run from the 31st to the 30th, exactly a year later. So you can't take it, and there's only 11 months on your insurance because they'll reject it. So you need to have it on that day, the day that you're going. You've got to have your cover letter from your insurance company. So they are quite strict with that.
Yes. So this is sometimes something that can put your timing out, which may mean you need to go back, is that if your insurance certificate is not ready at this point, you will need it to do the final step. But once you take your sales deed, once again, the original, your insurance certificate, and then you will pay your registration fees to get your disc for your vehicle for the year. There is an option to do it for 6 months, but it means you have to go back after 6 months, which is not ideal. And then that's the process. Once you've done that, you have to put your insurance disc and your registration disc in the vehicle. And
then your ownership is your horsepower certificate. It's a card that they stamp each time you pay. And then for renewals, you can do the renewals you don't have to go to the NTA, you can do it at the post office, local post office, but you have to do it in that renewal period. So if you arrive a month late and your insurance your disc has expired, you have to go back to the NTA again. So, and you get paid penalties if you miss it. So you need to take that, put a reminder in your phone, and usually the insurance companies come back and say, listen, you need to renew your insurance a week before it expires. So that's usually your heads up to get your license redone.
And one thing to note is that the registration fees, annual fees, will be different based on the age of your vehicle and the engine
capacity.
So if you would like to know more about that, you can have a look on the NTA, which is the National Transport Authority website, and they have there the different costs for each engine capacity.
So to give you an idea, a small car would maybe be 4,000 rupees a year. Where if you're driving a big Ford Ranger Raptor 3 litre, it's going to be like 12 to 13,000.
16, I think.
16,000.
Yeah.
So it's the bigger the engine, the bigger the horsepower, the higher the fee.
So should you consider buying electric or hybrid? That's something that I think is slowly taking off in Mauritius, and we're seeing more and more electric cars and hybrid cars on the market. There aren't a lot of charging points. So if you have a place at your home, in a garage, or a place where you can charge the vehicle every day, then that would be something that we would say consider, because you can benefit from the green leases, and of course it's better for the environment. But it's taking off slowly in Mauritius. There are options like a Kia Niro, for example, would set you back maybe 1.5 million rupees. A smaller one, like a Nissan Note, would be about 745,000 rupees. At the top of the range, you could get a BMW iX, I think, electric, which would be more like 3.4 million rupees. So there are choices.
But the main option is to have a home charging system. I think because the network hasn't been established here. You can go to a total filling station and they'll have one bay for electric charging. But if there's another car there, you bug it. So you've got to be set up for your home wall charging.
Again, the island is not big, so you're not going to be doing large mileage on a daily basis. So it is something to consider.
So that's it, guys. I think from our side with cars. Any questions, you can email us on info@rolfeinternational.com. And if you'd like to set up a consult with us, you can get a hold of us on that email as well and set up a 10-minute free call. And we can get to meet you and get to see how we can help you.
Cheers, guys.
Bye, guys.